keeping you up to date and informed on all the latest and greatest news in the world of recovery. Welcome to this edition of Just for Today News with your hosts, Carrie M., Helga P., and Mike W. And now, Just for Today.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. In today's recovery news, the Center for Disease Control released a report stating that 46 people die from an overdose of prescription painkillers each day in the U.S. The report goes on to state that an increase in painkiller prescribing is a key driver of the increase in prescription overdoses.
As you know, Carrie, opiate usage has skyrocketed over the last several years. The National Institute of Health is now calling this an epidemic.
That's right, Helga. As the number of people using opiate painkillers for the treatment of pain increases, so do the number of deaths stemming from the usage of those painkillers. Opioid painkillers now cause more deaths each year than cocaine and heroin combined.
And of course, the number of people becoming addicted to these painkillers has risen dramatically as well. Our correspondent Steve H. traveled to a detox facility this week and met with a medical doctor in order to discuss the addictive nature of opiates. Here is that report.
I'm here at City Detox with Dr. Woolsey to discuss opiate addiction. Dr. Woolsey, have you seen a large increase in people detoxing from opiates?
Oh yes, Steve, most definitely. 10 years ago, we would get the occasional heroin addict, but now we regularly get people trying to detox from all forms of opiates, with opiate painkillers being the majority of these cases.
Why are opiates so addictive?
Well, Steve, opiate addiction has two aspects, the physical addiction and the psychological addiction. A person gets physically addicted to the drug, and then it's very hard to go through withdrawal. Once a person does withdraw, the psychological addiction often draws them back in and gets them hooked all over again. It may surprise you, Steve, to find out that the human body produces its own natural opiates, such as endorphins, when you experience pain, excitement, love, during sex, and when you exercise. These opioids attach themselves to the opioid receptors in the brain and in other parts of the body. This brings about a feeling of pleasure and well-being and acts as a natural painkiller. It's pretty cool that the body has this mechanism. If you were to break your legs, opiates, which your body naturally produces, would act as a temporary but effective painkiller and allow you to function well enough to seek help.
That's amazing. What happens when we start supplementing our natural opioids with opiate-based drugs?
Well, opiates such as heroin and Oxycontin work by activating the same receptors which naturally occurring neurotransmitters activate. These receptors are known as the U-opioid receptors. When you activate these receptors with heroin, Oxycontin, or any other opiate-based drugs, you feel intense pleasure. Opiates also increase the amount of dopamine in the brain, which only adds to the pleasurable effect.
So why do people become so addicted to opiates?
The reason we become addicted to opiates is because whenever we introduce opiates into our body, the brain scales back on its own production in order to compensate. In essence, your body says, hey, if you're going to supply your own opiates, I guess I don't have to anymore. So I'm going to cut back on the number of opioids that I produce, and I'm going to let you keep supplying opioids artificially.
So the body stops producing its own opioids?
Well, let's just say that it dramatically reduces production of its own opioids. This is all well and good as long as you are continually introducing opiate-based drugs into your body. But let's say you decide to get clean and stop using opiates altogether. Well, the body doesn't just jump in and begin producing natural opioids right away in order to pick up the slack. Instead, your body will wait to see if maybe you change your mind, or maybe you'll get lucky and score some dope. It takes a little while for your body to kick in and begin producing its own natural opioids again. And it takes a little while for this level to increase to a point where you begin feeling good again and normal again. This period in between when you stop using your drug and when your body gets back to producing natural opioids at a normal rate is known as the withdrawal period. You may have heard it called being dope sick.
Can you describe the withdrawal experience for us?
Well, it's not a pleasant thing at all. Withdrawal symptoms can include hot and cold sweats, restless leg syndrome, nausea, diarrhea, anxiety, tremors, and muscle aches.
Is there anything you can do to make the withdrawal process a little less uncomfortable?
Yes, in a medically managed detox facility such as our own, we often try to help people withdraw from opiates by providing medication which will ease the symptoms somewhat. It will still be an uncomfortable process, but medication will help a little bit with your symptoms.
How long does it take to go through acute withdrawal?
It depends on several factors, Steve, but we are generally looking at 1 to 3 weeks, depending upon how much you've been using and how long you've been using it.
Thank you, Dr. Woolsey.
My pleasure, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Now let's take a look at this interview, which I did with a young lady addicted to opiates. I'm visiting with Jennifer, a young lady who is 29 years old and addicted to heroin. Hello, Jennifer. How are you today?
Not too good, Carrie. I did the last of my heroin last night and I'm feeling dope sick.
Thank you for agreeing to this interview, knowing how bad you feel physically right now. Can you tell our viewers how you got addicted?
Well, I didn't intend to become a heroin addict, that's for sure. Up until this happened to me, I never even did drugs or partied as a kid. I was even on the honor roll and beginning to look at colleges.
What happened?
Well, I was in a car accident and hurt my back. After the surgery, my doctor prescribed me some pain pills. I really needed them since I was hurting pretty bad.
What kind of pain pills?
They were hydrocodone.
So how long were you on the pain pills?
About 2 months. Then the prescription ran out. That's when I realized that I really didn't want to stop. It was like I couldn't stop thinking about how to get more, and I didn't feel right. It's kind of like being really hungry or really thirsty. You just have this intense desire that doesn't go away.
So you turned to heroin?
Not right away. I started getting some pain pills from friends and family. Oxycontin, Dilatids, whatever they had. Sometimes I'd just raid their medicine cabinets. Eventually, though, I began buying pills on the street and kind of fell into using heroin.
Why?
It seemed like I was just always around it. I had a boyfriend who used it. One day I just decided to try it myself, so I let him shoot me up.
Was it a better high than the pills?
Maybe a little, but they're all opiates. Heroin is cheaper, though, and sometimes easier to get.
So now what?
I need to go find some money. My habit has pretty much become a full-time job. Every day is about finding enough money to buy my dope. This really sucks.
Have you thought about getting clean?
I plan to, but it's hard. I don't want to go through withdrawals. It's just horrible. Someday, though.
Thank you, Jennifer. I wish you luck. Sadly, we tried to find Jennifer a few days later, and we were horrified to learn that this beautiful young lady had died of an overdose of heroin.
What a shame that this young lady was so horribly sidetracked by opiates.
Most definitely.
While some addicts do come to a tragic end, there is, thankfully, plenty of hope for those who find their way into treatment. Let's watch this interview, which our correspondent Tammy S. did with the well-known addictions counselor, Larry D.
I'm here with Larry D., a substance abuse counselor at City Rehab. Larry, just how effective is treatment anyway?
I'm glad you asked that, Tammy. There are a lot of myths and urban legends out there about the effectiveness of treatment. The truth is that treatment is very effective. The National Institute on Drug Abuse reports that there is a 40% to 60% success rate for all types of treatment programs combined. If you go through treatment more than once or stay in treatment for an extended period, the success rate actually goes up quite a bit.
That sounds really promising. What types of treatments are available for opiate addicts?
Well, there are basically two types of treatment available for opiate addiction: medical treatment and non-medical treatment.
So what is medical treatment?
Medical treatment consists of using approved medications to either replace illegal opiates in a person's system, lessen withdrawal symptoms, or block a person from getting high altogether if they do use illegal opiates.
Are you talking about methadone?
Methadone, buprenorphine, and naltrexone are the three most common medications used.
Can you describe what each of these treatments consist of?
Sure. Methadone is an opiate replacement treatment. The addicted person receives their methadone at a licensed methadone clinic. While methadone is also an opiate, People who use methadone maintenance correctly are able to function well in society and lead somewhat normal lives. Taken at the proper dosage, methadone is relatively safe. While methadone does cause some euphoria, this is usually not experienced to any significant degree by the methadone maintenance user. The person on methadone maintenance simply doesn't experience withdrawal symptoms or get dope sick, as withdrawal is often referred to. One of the problems with methadone maintenance is that the person receiving methadone will sometimes try to supplement it with street opiates, increasing their odds of overdose. Another problem is that the person using methadone to stay clean needs to live somewhat close to a methadone clinic. Buprenorphine is another drug which, like methadone, replaces illegal opiates. Unlike methadone, buprenorphine has no euphoric effects whatsoever. Now, buprenorphine is usually combined with an opiate blocker called naloxone. This combination of drugs is called Suboxone. Suboxone suppresses a user's opiate cravings, making it easier for the user to stay clean. The pluses of using Suboxone are that you can get a prescription for Suboxone and take it at home. This means that you don't need to live near a methadone clinic. The drawbacks of Suboxone are that you must partially detox before using Suboxone.
What about naltrexone?
Naltrexone, also called Vivitrol, is an opiate blocker used by people who are already clean. Because naltrexone blocks the pleasurable effects of street opiates, it removes the incentive to use them. Naltrexone is usually administered as a long-lasting shot under the name Vivitrol. The shots are administered once a month.
You also mentioned non-medical treatment. What does this consist of?
Well, the first component of non-medical treatment would be to go through detox and get past the acute withdrawal phase. Many detox facilities do use some medication to ease the withdrawal symptoms, but you would eventually be completely clean and sober and off opiates altogether. Then, many opiate addicts go through residential treatment. Now, this might last anywhere from 28 days to 1 year, depending on the treatment program you choose.
What does the recovering addict do in treatment?
Well, several things, really. In treatment, the recovering addict gets a chance to begin addressing issues from their past, like old emotional pain and hurts. And the addict begins learning skills for coping with life clean and sober. Now, if there are any co-occurring emotional disorders like depression or anxiety, the person in treatment begins addressing these as well.
Is this all done in individual counseling sessions?
Usually a mixture of group counseling and individual counseling.
So after treatment is over, is the opiate addict cured?
Oh no, not at all. Addiction is a lifelong disease which can be sent into remission, but not cured. There's always a chance for relapse if we let down our guard.
So how do you prevent that?
Well, in treatment, the recovering addict begins setting up a relapse prevention plan. This usually consists of utilizing some form of ongoing outpatient counseling, building and maintaining a support system, and becoming involved with a 12-step program.
You mean Narcotics Anonymous?
Yeah, a lot of addicts become involved with Narcotics Anonymous or other 12-step programs.
What are the benefits of joining a 12-step program?
12-step programs give you a social network of other people who are trying to live a clean and sober lifestyle. This is a great place to put together a support system. You can also work through the steps for continued self-improvement. Now, a lot of people report that being involved in a 12-step program is the most important part of their recovery. I'm a recovering addict myself, and I'm still very involved with the 12-step program.
On a personal note, why did you get into this line of work?
Well, Tammy, I got tired of seeing people die. This really is a life or death situation. Not everyone chooses to stay clean after treatment, and sometimes that choice leads to their death. But for some people, they choose to do whatever it takes to stay clean, and they live productive and fulfilling lives.
Thank you, Larry. Helga, back to you.
Sadly enough, many opiate addicts die from overdoses or suicide. We've all heard about the tragedies, but we'd like to leave you with a look at a real success story. Emily J. was an opiate addict from the age of 17 until she was 27. Today, she's celebrated 5 years clean and sober. Happy birthday, Emily. Congratulations on your awesome achievement.
Thank you, Helga. I'm really just grateful to have my life back.
How did you do it?
It's been quite a process, Helga. First, I went to detox, which was pretty tough. Then I spent 28 days in a drug treatment center. When I graduated, I started going to a 12-step program. That's where I found a really awesome sponsor and began working the 12 steps.
5 years ago, you were an addict. What does your life look like now?
I really couldn't be happier. I have my children back, which is super important to me. And I've started going to college so that I can work with developmentally challenged children. I think the best thing is that I feel good about myself now instead of so ashamed. My mom and sister are really proud of me too. I guess you could say I'm just really happy right now.
Thank you, Emily. You should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you. That's really nice of you.
What an incredible story. While opiate addiction can be a real nightmare for the addicted person and their loved ones, it's important to remember that hundreds of thousands of people, just like Emily J., have recovered from addiction and now lead happy and fulfilling lives for themselves. Thank you for joining us. Until next week, this is
Just for Today.